Mm-hmm. 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 Come on. Mm-hmm.
Good morning and welcome to the fourth episode of Chuck Chat. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm learning a lot about myself and a lot about our business, and I've got a lot of people who come to me and ask me questions all the time, and that's why I started doing these. And today I'd like to introduce you to Taylor Coan. Taylor has been with Unicorp now for 5 years?
5 years. 5 years.
And I met you how long ago?
It's a little over 10 years.
10 years. Wow, and I met her in a very difficult situation. Mm-hmm. And it was during the Haiti earthquake.
Yep, 10 years ago, January. Chuck, I actually was sent a quote from Alexi on perseverance. I want to read it to you. It says, "I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance." And that was Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, who used an Apple device today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we're dealing with today again. I know we've talked about it a couple times, but what a time to persevere through with, luckily Florida's opening back up again, but I hear all these other states now talking about they can't even go to church. And,
yeah, it's terrible.
Governors telling people, well, you can go to church, but you can't sing and you can't pass around the collection plate. And you talk about people having to persevere right now. It's those churches. I don't know how they're going to survive without the donations and the people attending. And it's such a tough time to get through.
Yeah, it definitely is. So, you're seeing a lot of people who are being forced to persevere. And, it makes me think of all the stories you've told me and times that you've been pushed to persevere that you weren't expecting to come. So is anything, does that pop up in your mind? Anything in your past that's forced you to persevere?
It starts from being a little boy. I've told before that, my parents got divorced when I was young, but, you have to have strength in yourself and faith in yourself to get through hard times. I remember, it started off and I was in elementary school and had some really rough times in elementary school with bullying.
I wouldn't have expected you to be bullied. How did you overcome that? What impact did that have on your life now as an adult?
Well, we didn't have money when I was a kid, and kids would always make fun of other kids, easy targets, I guess. Yeah. And I was an easy target in school. And I remember kind of a defining moment in my life, which actually has helped me through business and got me, to a success level, is the first time I ever had a new pair of tennis shoes in school.
Wow.
And I was out on the ball field, and this kid comes and he stomps all over my shoes. You know how you get the new white tennis shoes?
Yeah.
You go home and you want to clean them and make sure they stay white. And
especially you.
Yeah, a little ADD on that. And this kid decided he wanted to ruin my brand new pair of shoes. And oh gosh, it upset me. And I remember thinking at that moment, one day I'm going to get to the point where kids can't make fun of me. And it just, pulling on inner strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, since I've worked for you, I've heard you talk about the last recession and how that you've had to persevere through times that we're seeing right now in the past. This isn't your first rodeo. What was that like?
Yeah, the 2009 recession was difficult, and you get to the point where you realize people think that they're victims all the time, that, oh, woe is me. Mm-hmm. And you have to have more of a thought of that, I'm going to get through this. I'm a firm believer that things always happen in life the way they're supposed to be, not necessarily the way you want them to be. Things happen in life. You get challenges thrown in front of you. And if you say, if you're a baseball player and you say, gosh, why did I get a pitcher who threw such a fast ball? That's not fair. Mm. If you get a pitcher who throws a fast ball, you say, okay, I got to deal with the fast one. And that happens in business. You get things thrown at you, and you have to figure out, how am I going to deal with it? Mm-hmm. How am I going to get through it? And saying, I'm not a victim, I'm going to react to the situation I'm in. It may be a tough situation, like the way we met. You were in Haiti.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that at a different time, but you were thrown into a situation that you'd never expected you were in, and I bet that was one of your most difficult times in life.
Yeah, it was. And to not ever have been in a third world country and then to just say this was a mission trip I was going to go on and come back and tell happy stories. And it changed my life for sure. It was a time that changed a lot of people's lives. And so that kind of, I'm seeing that today as well as something that we have these plans that we create, and then all of a sudden our plans don't go the way we expected. And we have to be able to adapt. We have to be able to persevere through them. And so, it is a time in our lives that we're going to look back and be able to say, okay, I was flexible, and I've watched you do that in the small deals that we have and in the big deals we have. You're flexible. So.
And things like your story and my stories, you reflect on, and those are what helps you grow in life and makes you stronger.
Yeah.
After 2009, I really wish I had more faith going into 2009 because I kept looking at the worst of things.
Yeah.
And as I went through that and learned that everything was going to be okay, I gained inner strength to realize, hey, things happen. When things are, go the wrong direction, I'm gonna grab myself by the bootstraps and get up again.
Yeah.
I learned that in school. If a kid knocked you down and punched you, you could stay on the ground and cry and throw a temper tantrum, or you could get up and say, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be pushed around,
Yeah.
and I'm going to survive. And just like I've said before, this pandemic that we're dealing with, it's a fight that the world didn't pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like walking down the street and somebody knocked you down, and you don't know why they knocked you down, and you get up and they knocked you down again, and you realize I'm going to fight and I've got to deal with it. And that's the way I approach really everything in life. Anytime anything bad happens, I just say, how am I going to get through this? And there's different ways in which you get through these type of things. In some instances, it may be just having a positive attitude. It's like going to the dentist. I hate going to the dentist. And whenever even just to get my teeth cleaned, and I always think beyond that. I think, okay, I've got a 10 o'clock dentist appointment. I'm going to think about my 11:30 lunch.
Yeah.
And just get through whatever the rough times are. And that's not really a rough time, but it's a
Right.
stressful thing.
Well, no, I think it's interesting that you say attitude, how much attitude affects the trial that you're going through, or whatever the season of life. And so you said that you've seen times in your life where you wish that you had had a positive attitude. So in this season right now, you see, would an advice that you have be to, is your outlook a huge portion of having success right now?
Yeah, you have to, understanding in life, the great word you use, seasons, is things change constantly. Mm-hmm. You're not always in one position, and if you look to something more positive, to me, I love the spring, I love the fall, and whenever I'm in the heat of the summer, I think of, I can't wait to get to the fall, the beautiful weather, put your roof down in the car, and you get to wear your fall, winter clothes. You're always looking to the other side of a bad time. Doesn't mean you don't get through it. You have to get through it. It's a tough time, but realizing it's not permanent. Mm-hmm. And when you realize something's not permanent, and you have optimism, it gives you strength to get to the other side. Not to sit in a position, thinking this is horrible, I'm never gonna get through it, why is my life like this? Thinking, gosh, it's the old saying I heard in church one day where the preacher said, if you're not in a storm, watch out, there's one in front of you. Yeah. Or if you're in a storm, look for the rainbow. Because it does, life changes, and you have to have inner strength to do that. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in, the law of outcomes. Things always change.
Yeah.
So, it's horrible when you hear about suicides in the world and people take their lives. And like right now with this pandemic, there's times where people think, I'm losing my business, I'm closed, and they're living in the moment and not thinking about the next moment, and they don't know how to handle that and how to deal with it. And you really have to have the foresight to think in the future. Like, we're going to talk about Haiti next time, but when you were there, probably the one thing you thought about more than anything is, I just can't wait to be home. And you knew you would be home or hoped you would be home, but the thought of changing the condition that you're in.
Yeah, my mom always says to me, since I was a little girl, this too shall pass. And when I was in the earthquake, all I could think of was my circumstance at that moment. And I just wanted to get home. Honestly, I just wanted to talk to my parents. Just wanted the ground to stop shaking. Those were in this moment, this is really what I want. And I could not think of anything farther than that. So it changes my perspective now. Instead of thinking, I just want, this pandemic to be over. I want, people to stop getting sick. we can think of a bigger picture, that this will pass and that we will get through this. Businesses will come back to life. And so it's encouraging for me to see your outlook on it too. It's definitely.
Well, and it makes you appreciate life. There's an old Bing Crosby song in White Christmas that I always think about, and it says, "Count your blessings instead of your sheep." And that's what you want to think about, and it makes you in good times appreciate what you have. And I always say you need to celebrate the victories, because we're working hard every day to get things done and work at getting tenants and work at getting the next deal and work at getting a permit. And you also have to celebrate those victories. When we get them done, they're accomplishments.
Absolutely.
It's not just the journey to get there. It's actually, you got to celebrate getting there. It's like going on vacation. Everybody's excited about going on vacation. And then when you get there, you have to enjoy the vacation.
Right.
But it is exciting getting there. And so you do have to appreciate those good times and it's struggle to get to them. I use the word struggle to get to them because it is work. It's work, in our business, putting a lease together is work. I know I pushed you and Alexi very hard to close O-Town. We closed our biggest land deal ever.
It was a lot.
And I remember how stressed Alexi was and how stressed you were, and I was the biggest jerk in the world because every week I'm saying, we need more deals, we need more deals.
We were coming in with our yoga pants on Saturday mornings trying to get those deals done.
But you got them done.
We got them done.
And I know you and Alexi weren't sure if you could get those number of deals we needed for the closing.
Yeah.
But we got them.
Got 'em.
And now I'm pressing you guys again in the worst market to lease, saying you got to get deals done. And I remember you 3 weeks ago telling me nobody wants to do deals right now. There's a pandemic.
It was hard. You wanted to be sensitive to the times and the things that people were going through. But I think people are now starting to get encouraged. We're seeing that with the deals that we're working with, is they see that there's going to be a future and this is going to pass, and that we are social beings and we're going to want to get out and go to restaurants again and go to theme parks again. So.
And I was in Memorial Day weekend. It rained on Memorial Day, but other than that, the weekend was beautiful. And I was in Longboat Key. We could talk about perseverance there.
Oh,
and,
yes.
In 6 years, 7 years, we've been working on that deal.
Love it.
Everybody, the elderly people, the most high-risk people, were all on the streets this weekend. I took a picture in a restaurant that was jam-packed.
Wow.
It was not at the 50%. It was more like 150. And they were all elderly people, and they were out because that's what we want to do. We want to live. And but I want to take one step back, and then we'll go a step forward. But even during this pandemic, as difficult as it has been, and I pushed you and Lexi, you've gotten a big Pet Paradise deal done in Sarasota. We've got a Crunch Fitness deal we're working on. We've got some big deals. Even though fitness centers are closed, we have some big deals coming out of this. And once again, that comes from perseverance. You're pushing through. You're getting deals done. We're pushing through. I'm getting bank financing done. As we speak today, we're closing a $50 million loan tomorrow.
Nice.
That's hard to do right now. Okay. And so, like I said, going forward again, I was in Longboat Key this weekend, and talk about a deal that's taken perseverance. You've been part of it.
Absolutely. I've watched you from the beginning. That has been one of the coolest projects for me, to see how we had so much opposition on that, and sitting in those, commission meetings and people, the town coming out against us, and now they love you. I even get emails from people in the town saying, I just want to say how much we respect Chuck for the way that he persevered, the way he pushed through to get this done. And you listened to the town, you did it the right way. And that's definitely an example of perseverance, is that one project in Longboat Key.
And the project in Longboat Key that Taylor's talking about is the colony that we bought. It was in a triple bankruptcy, mired down in tons of litigation. And today we are opening a sales center in about 4 weeks for the St. Regis Hotel and Residences. And I remember the very first day I walked into the town manager's office of Longboat Key. And he said, Chuck, do you know how many developers have sat in front of me and told me they're going to redevelop the colony? And I said, Dave, trust me, I'm the one who's going to do it. And I said, I am not going to let go. I said, like a dog with a bone, I will be relentless.
And you were. I watched that.
And there were times, just like anything in life, there were times where I was like, why am I doing this? There were times where I wanted to give up. But what kept me going in the times where I thought, I don't know if I want to be doing this, I would sit back and think, well, somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to accomplish this. And if I drove by that site a decade from now and saw a beautiful hotel built there, it would be a symbol of my failure. It would be a symbol that I was willing to give up and somebody else did it and succeeded.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't bear that. I couldn't bear thinking, I'm going to drive by see that somebody else did that and I didn't. And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to do it because something's going to be built there.
Right.
And so I was determined not to give up. And that is so important in perseverance is not giving up. You're in the hardest circumstance, don't give up. And you also have to do what makes you successful. I always think about one of my friends who's got his son, he was saying he's always benched at basketball. He's always on the bench. And I said to him, why don't you get him into something where he's not on the bench? If you're always on the bench, that's probably not the right spot for you in
Right.
life. It's like the old book that if you're not in the right seat of the bus, find the right seat on the bus to be on. Find out what makes you successful, because I don't try to persevere at things like basketball. If I was playing basketball against Michael Jordan, I could not persevere. I could not be successful. I would not win.
Right.
It would be pointless. And no matter how relentless, he would be slapping me down like a little puppy dog. Yeah. So you've got to figure out what you're good at and persevere at that. Right. I mean, there's obviously circumstances in life that you have to persevere at that, just normal things, getting through life, getting through relationships, and, getting through your job and normal things. But, try to always put yourself in a position to succeed.
Right. Be smart about it. Have grit. I think I read this book called Grit. It's awesome. But one thing that they said was you can become a greater person if you surround yourself with gritty people. And that is true for me. Is once I started surrounding myself with you, Lexi, and everyone at Unicorp, it gives you that fire and that passion to be better and to do better. And so that was something that I took away from that book that I see here in my personal life at Unicorp.
You actually went to college for a completely different career.
Completely different. And I'm so thankful that my path led me here. That's why, this is such an applicable subject. It's something that I didn't plan. It's something that we didn't plan this pandemic, but you fight through it and then you end up in a better place than you would have expected. I think you could probably say that as well. There's a lot of deals that maybe went a different direction and you're thankful that they did. Yeah,
sometimes the best deals are the deals you don't do. I never, like most young people, I started off cutting grass, DJ at the skating rink. I never had the thought that I would be a developer. I just kind of came into this, and a lot of people who go to college really don't know what they want to do. They just end up somewhere.
Yeah.
But the one thing is you have to always give it your all. I don't care what you do. I always tell people is that if someone asks me to go clean a car, that car is going to be spotless when I'm done with it, because it's an ethic of who I am to do things right. And whether it's cleaning a car or cleaning the garage floor or racing a race, if I'm racing a race, I'm going to race as hard as I can. If I'm in a car race, I'm going to race as hard as I can. I might not always be the best, but I'm going to give it my best.
Absolutely.
And that's important. And it kind of brings me to, we've been talking a lot about perseverance, and I get people all the time ask me stories about how did you become successful and what's made you successful in your life, and so I thought about it for years, and I finally decided to put it into writing. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a book on the topic that we're talking about, perseverance.
Great.
And I'm excited about that.
So when does it come out? When do we get to read this?
If everything goes right, which hopefully it will go right, is that it will be available on chuckwhitall.com as of the end of this week.
Awesome.
Or it will, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or go to Unicorp, our website, and you can order it. And it's a series of stories in my life, but it's more than, it's not really an autobiography of my life. It's more, I was really wanting to share ideas of how you can become successful, things like we've been talking about right now. And, as I went through it, it became more interesting with stories.
Yeah. How it applies to life, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of Jim Henry from First Baptist. And I always enjoyed his church services. And he always had a story to tell. That man was blessed with more stories than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
I agree.
And I told Jim one day, I said, Jim, you were destined to be a preacher. And I said, because you've had stories put in front of you that I've never heard anybody have that many stories. And I said, you've been able to, spread the word of God through the stories that you've had in your life. And he thought about it, and he said, yeah, I've had a lot of stories. And I said, those were strategically placed in front of you to share, because the most interesting part of listening to his church services were the stories, and he would always relate them back to a great biblical story. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about that with me, that that my successes and my failures have all been parts of different stories. Whether it was 9/11, I was supposed to be in the World Trade Center on 9/12.
Wow.
I had an appointment there at 10 o'clock in the morning. If that were to happen the next day, I would have been in that building. And it's an interesting story, and that's a long story.
And it's in the book?
I think that's in the book.
Okay, in the book.
And we've got, gosh, I just remember I had friends who worked on Wall Street. I was doing a lot of business on Wall Street.
Wow.
Because when I started Unicorp, I did CMBS, credit mortgage-backed securities, and I was down in New York all the time. So I was there the following week.
Wow.
And what a terrible event, and it affected my business, obviously.
Yeah.
And but it's a story I can tell, and how we got through that, and how the world got through it, and now we're at we went through the 2009 recession,
Right.
and lots of interesting stories that surrounded that. Still, once again, dealing with New York again, because that's who my lenders were.
Yeah.
And now dealing with today. And my book is coming out next week, so it doesn't talk about the pandemic. And so it would have been interesting if my book was next year, because I would have had another crisis.
Hey, you can do a sequel. Volume number 2.
It makes me think that I do kind of want to write another book, because there's really 2 parts to this. Perseverance is your attitude and what you do to get through things and picking yourself up. It's like you ever watch a boxing match and the guy keeps getting knocked down and he stays on the ground and he gets up again. You go, stay on the ground. You don't want to get beat up anymore. But the guy who keeps getting up, it's like Rocky.
Yeah.
That's who they cheered for, because he kept getting up and he kept doing.
So it's attitude and action. Having good attitude isn't enough. You have to act on that attitude and actually be confident and move forward, one foot in front of the other.
It's like the old saying, faith without works.
Yeah.
And so you have to have that belief, and you have to act upon it.
Sure.
And I have been thinking about, gosh, I want to, even though my first book hasn't come out, I want to do another book called Surviving a Crisis. Because the one thing I've learned too during this recession, this tough time, is after dealing with 2009, I immediately knew what to do. I immediately
That's
knew
awesome.
I had to bunker down. I knew the attitude that, from last time, I knew what type of attitude I need to have. I figured out what I need to do with banks and cutting costs and working with tenants. And, it's a whole, I think a whole different subject on, I've even advised my friends who are in business what they need to do, because, surviving a crisis is more than perseverance. It's actually having the knowledge and the wisdom, which are different. Having knowledge and wisdom are making you do the right things. The perseverance part is actually having the will and the optimism to do it.
Okay.
And sometimes you don't know what to do. It's like if I want to go play baseball, I could go out there, okay, I'm ready to go, but okay, Chuck, this is how you hold the bat, this is how you swing, this is when you swing. That's a different subject. The perseverance is more, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to give it my best, I'm going to try my hardest. And so I'm excited about the book coming out. I hope you are
Awesome.
actually in the book.
Oh, that's exciting.
And we talk about Haiti, and I want to talk about that next week when we get together.
Would love to.
And so I'm excited about the book. Hopefully people like the book.
I think they will. I think just from working with you, there's a different story every day. I think you talk about Jim Henry having stories. I've never heard a man have as many stories as you. So it'll be interesting to read that in a book.
So anyhow, look for my book. It's going to be on chuckwhitall.com.
End of next week.
Yeah, end of next week, Unicorp, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.